that they can actually field the full roster and compete today, they definitely want to make sure that they're not getting sloppy. Churn Walker being banned, first ban though, that's very, very interesting. It's been so popular in the meta here today. It'll be really interesting to see kind of how Salty Potatoes adapts that. No surprise that the Maline is getting banned. She's just too strong right now. Rising Lotus picking up the Lyra, leaving Kroll on the board for what I think is the first time in Europe this weekend.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of Kroll first bans coming through here, especially today. And so now Salty Potatoes have to choose, do they want that Kroll? I mean, with the Churnwalker off the board, who's been the popular B-side pick, I would not be surprised if they go for the Churnwalker, or excuse me, for the Kroll, alongside that Celeste getting first picked as well. Again, surprised that we haven't seen Celeste in these first pick rotations throughout our first 2 games. So it's, you know, I'm kind of happy that Salty Potatoes are getting that hero immediately into their roster.
There it is. The Kroll coming onto the board can definitely be a menace if these teams do not position, if they aren't getting down good vision to keep tabs on where he is at all time. The slow from the Dead Man's Rush and is on top of the Shadows Empower Me is so hard for so many of these teams to deal with. Rising Lotus though, getting that Reza, another great first phase pickup. It's been banned so much in the second phase pick, they're going to be able to use that hopefully effectively against the Celeste. We've not seen it have a lot of success here today, but still all the burst damage coming out of him when he gets onto those backline mages can be very hard for teams to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult, although thus far today, we haven't really seen the Reza Lyra combo be super effective. You know, it's had its struggles. It's lost both of the 2 games that it showed up in. So I like the fact that the teams are, have a very clear idea of where they want to go with this draft. And, these A-side teams are getting themselves this Lyra Rezo combo, but they just have to make it work now.
Absolutely. A bit of an interesting ban coming out of Rising Lotus, taking the Samuel off the board. I guess that they really just didn't want to have to deal with the double mage composition. A lot of range, but it's not something that we've seen too many of these teams using. And when they are using it, maybe not to great effect.
I feel like a lot of times the reason we haven't seen it so much is because it doesn't often get allowed to get through. So it's definitely something that teams are worried about. We've seen it get either banned or picked away when one side gets either the Celeste or the Samuel. The other one is usually not available to them by the time it gets to their next pick. So interesting decision to go for this Lorelei right off the bat. Another one of these heroes that we've seen sneaking into drafts here and there, usually a little bit later into the draft, but obviously Salty Potatoes have an idea in mind. They want this Lorelei on their side. There's not a lot of crowd control just yet for Rising Lotus to really have to contend with, though.
Yeah, they don't have a lot to deal with a lot of the heavy, high-pressure engage potential that this Salty Potato roster has started to put together. Lorelei, another one of those heroes that can be very challenging to go against in a team fight, putting down those pools, dropping the fish food, the stuns, the slows, the damage, something that saw a lot of activity in North America yesterday.
Yeah, for sure, but we're coming into this one, I think Rising Lotus, they're pretty well set up to deal with a Lorelei. They have a lot of their engage is a dash or a portal or something else that can just ignore those massive slow fields that get put down onto the Rise. So I feel like Salty Potatoes, may have to look at how they want to play this game a little bit around this Lorelei and use a lot of the pools for movement speed for their team to try and get out or into situations. It's not, I don't think a lot of those pools are going to be used offensively aside from the stun. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do completely change up that play style that they may have been expecting to try and run.
Absolutely, yeah. The mobility going to be challenging for Lorelei to have to deal with, but with that water wall, whenever Reza or Rona decides to jump onto a single target, Lorelei should be able to keep that target alive. I assume in this case it's going to be Celeste. Salty Potatoes, I really like the Batiste pickup out of them. That's going to be something very effective for dealing with a lot of these mobilities. They're not going to be able to just hop out of the Ordained, or if they do, they're going to get stunned, obviously. And something that Rising Lotus is going to have to be careful of, because if they do step too far forward, they can get punished very easily.
Absolutely can. I mean, again, if you get caught in that fish food stun, it is a long duration stun. There's a lot of crowd control coming out of Salty Potatoes. It's something we talked about very early in the preseason, is how much we like these crowd control compositions. You have a core collapse, you have From Hell's Heart, you have plenty of slows, you have fish food, you have Batiste, who has multiple forms of hard crowd control in his kit. That is a lot to contend with if you're the side of Rising Lotus. They are really going to need to focus on those reflex blocks and be extremely diligent with their timings of it.
I think perhaps a Black Feather to try and deal with a lot of this crowd control would be very effective. I like the Vox ban out of them a lot. That's a hero that Rona particularly is going to have a lot of trouble with and struggle against. So they're going to go for the Kestrel, though. Again, not a hero that has a lot of crowd control. Rising Lotus, for the most part, doesn't have any. She does have the active camo, obviously, but if she steps out of position for even a second, it's going to be very easy for Salty Potatoes to try and just absolutely punish her.
Yeah, and a lot of this kind of is all reliant on that. It's about, can they avoid this crowd control? Because if any of those heroes get out of position a little bit, if any of them get stunned up for any duration, they're going to get deleted. Even the Rona, if you stun her out of a red mist, you prevent her from getting that fortified health, you can still take her down relatively quickly when she doesn't have those fortified health stacks building up. So I'm very wary for this composition that has been drafted, but it can also be a devastating composition if they can properly avoid those stuns, if they can work their way around, if they can be the ones being the aggressors and picking off targets. There's a ton of damage in there.
Absolutely, and the Grace on top of that, even more crowd control. Taking a look at our players to watch.
Yeah, we're going to first be looking at Cracks for the side of Rising Lotus. He has had some very, very good positioning in their recent games. All of Rising Lotus has stepped up quite a bit in their last couple of matchups, and you see Cracks just the pathing he takes to these fights in order to get into a position where he can have the most amount of impact.
It's very smart, very calculated, definitely a high impact player whenever this Rising Lotus roster is finding success. On the flip side of things, for the side of Salty Potatoes, Aeon, whenever Salty Potatoes has been finding victories, Aeon has looked very, very good, making sure that his team is constantly all on the same page, going in when he's going in. He knows how to play very safe in this bottom lane here, obviously the top laner for his team, making sure that he is punishing these teams. When Wolves tries to step up and go for that turret, he defends it very well with some help from Sneaky coming in, and then whenever Aeon needs to go in on this weapon power Grace, he is able to do a ton of damage.
Yeah, he's been playing some of these more almost unconventional picks that have sort of become now the norm for these top laners, and has been doing just a great job. So it's really going to be this should be a very interesting matchup. I'm really looking forward to getting into this one and seeing how it plays out, because again, these are two teams that could make a case for themselves to be in that number 3 spot in Europe at the moment. So, power ranking is going to be shaking things up after this week is through. And we'll find out where these teams are going to stand as we head on to Sovereign's Rise for the final game of Europe.
Third versus fourth here, Stress Rising Lotus looking to try and even things up with Salty Potatoes potentially. We'll have to see if they're able to do it as we jump into this game.
Yeah, and this is an important game for Salty Potatoes after yesterday with not being able to play, obviously dropping one loss there. I think that comes really interesting though. You got Krull, you got Baptiste. If we see that weapon power Baptiste, which it is going to be, if they manage to find one person on their own with any of their crowd control, they're just going to get melted down in the late game. Like these are two heroes that are going to really chunk you down quickly.
Yeah, when you actually look at the kind of what these two compositions are, you've got a almost siege dive composition coming out of Rising Lotus versus a anti-dive composition coming out of Salty Potatoes. You can't dive a Grace, you can't dive a Lorelei, you can't dive a Baptiste or a Krull. It makes things very difficult. So how do Rising Lotus find their openings in team fights? Well, they've got a lot of range with the Kestrel and that Varia, but after that, where do they find their team fight wins?
Well, I think the range is the first part of it. The other part is any defensive style composition, like looking at anti-dive or anti-siege, only really is effective if you do what they're looking you to do in the first place. Like, it's not particularly effective if you're not diving, but they still have that Krull ultimate to maybe set up a pick. That's where it can be adapted into a pick composition, which works very well against teams that maybe are a little upset on their team play to get this. This is a 5 versus 3 on the bottom side. Salty Potatoes,
right,
they have the health advantage, but not the numbers advantage. And I think they know it. They're going to back away.
Yeah, it is going to be that camp actually stolen by Imitation. Yeah, if you can believe it. That's actually a crazy steal coming through for that Kestrel. Now has a Crystal and a Weapon Power buff. Weapon Power buff obviously doesn't do as much for the Celeste, but I mean, auto attack's now slow, so let's see how that works.
That's going to be annoying. Auto
Oh, and in the bot lane, wow, look at this. Oh my goodness, how does Sneaky do this? Finds a kill in a 2v1. Can he find a second? Oh, it's so close.
Wait,
the minions! Whoa, 2 kills for Sneaky in a 1v2. Everyone loses their lives. Everyone's dead, but Sneaky definitely coming out on top of that.
That was great. That was a clutch play in the 1v2 by Sneaky. Like, really impressive on this Grace to be able to get that kill. Surprising amount of damage, especially in the early game. Speaking of the early game, Aeon, he and 11 have been walking around the jungle basically themselves and going up towards top lane. This is one thing that I really like, is when you can kind of power farm a Baptiste through the first 6 levels to get the experience and then get him into the game. When you do this, typically we've seen it with Grumpjaw, I think it's a really good way of empowering him to his core itemization as well as levels, and it puts him ahead. Baptiste from behind, going weapon power, in my mind, really difficult to play. Baptiste from ahead with weapon power, super easy to play because you just get one person, never let him get away.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is something that Queso have done just so well. Tyrus and Hundle continuously roaming in that jungle, becoming a threat. Temptation trying to escape Aeon and 11 here. Going to be a slight dive from Aeon just to smite him out, and now Temptation has to back up. So that can be the lane pushed right on in, and farm basically denied. Salty Potatoes really keeping up the pressure so far.
And that's one of the things Salty Potatoes are going to have in mid lane as well. A lot of this push power with the Celeste, and maybe a little tricky situation with the Lorelei, but has a decent amount of damage to trade back.
It's going to be Cracked very low. Nomad going to provide the heals, keep him in lane. This continues to go. They're not going to have to leave the lane just yet, but you see Imagination and Class trying to rotate towards that buff. Not going to happen. Keanu's Solicitude going to come up and steal that Crystal Treant away from them. Sneaky is roaming, but I don't think Salty Potatoes can really do anything to contest this. Maybe? We'll have to see. Solicitude takes the Crystal buff. Going to get rooted up, though, by Class, and Keanu is backing off. Right in the Lotus, able to find the steal. We'll just back away from the fight.
Yeah, another little fight going on, as well as 11 and Aeon had managed to find Cracks. Oh, they found him again.
So much trouble. He's just going to find himself going down. You think, no, never mind. Nomad with a heal comes through just the last second. Crystal Treant will be stolen away here. Temptation will roam out of this fight as well. So it is going to be trades on those Crystal Treants after all. Rising Lotus take one, Salty Potatoes take the other, but here come the roam squad, Class and Imagination, just trying to keep the pressure game up on Cracks and Nomad.
Yeah, trying to make sure the mid lane's pushed up, and as well stay up in the experience game. Class a little bit ahead of Nomad Vagabond in this lane as well. It is the 2 versus 2 that we've seen very commonly in mid lane. 2 versus 1 still continuing down in the bottom lane. Sneaky, he's been pretty comfortable despite the fact that this Cruel has not really had any opportunity to come bot side because he's power farming the Baptiste, and it may very well be time to go towards the top lane. As you can see, Aeon has his passive stacked up. He knows there's now a ward here, so won't be able to get there for the kill, but certainly a lot of pressure on the top side out of Salty Potatoes.
I mean, if any weapon power carry is going to be able to win a 1v2 or at least clear the wave in a 1v2. Weapon power Grace with her AoE auto attacks make that so much easier. Temptation on this Reza has the mobility needed to be able to escape Aeon and 11, but not really the wave clear needed to stop them if they wanted to, pushing in onto the turret. So it's quite an interesting dynamic that we have going on here as these fights continue, but a much slower paced game than the previous. Only 3 kills at this 6-minute mark, and none of the teams really making any major moves to try and find the lead.
I have a gut feeling that it's about to pick up in pace though, because Aeon has just got the ultimate here, and you know, you just stand in that bush, stack up the passive, the movement speed comes out, you hit one piece of crowd control, and then you can continue the engage. So as soon as he finds that opening, he's been hovering around mid lane for nearly a minute now, he should be able to get some impact. But look, this is a good reaction to it out of Rising Lotus, putting 3 people mid. He's never going to go in there if they're outnumbered. That's a bad fight for him to take.
Yeah, it certainly is. You see Keanu Koa putting some pressure in onto Class.
On his top side.
The top side, Temptation in a bit of trouble, but that is a whiffed ultimate coming out of 11. Not going to find anything there. Fight, disengage. Solar Storm does connect with Cracks, but this turret looks like it may fall. Sneaky trying his best to keep it alive. Cracks roaming around. He's on the wrong side of the jungle here. Let's see how this one plays out. One shot miss. Sneaky dodges it. Cracks with the speed buff trying to escape. Nomad trying to keep him alive, but he's roaming in the jungle. Class goes forward, finds the stun. Now can Imagine Imagination get into the fight is the question. Where is Aeon? Coming from the other side may not even be needed because that will be the kill going over to Imagination, but the turret will fall eventually. Sneaky not able to keep it alive. Aeon, can he catch Nomad out is the question. Coming through, the speed booth comes in. Aeon trying to find the kill onto Nomad, but you're not going to be able to find it just yet. The rest of his team coming through. Can Keanu Okoa escape? Looks like he's okay for now, but Nomad potentially not going to have the same fate. Auto attack comes through with so much damage, but it's not enough. 4 men from Salty Potatoes in this bot side. They're going to have to find a turret here, you would think.
Yeah, Nomad did so much work to split the fight there and keep the rest of his team alive that it actually really lets Rising Lotus take a good amount from that exchange. Krax just goes in the bottom lane, takes away the weapon power buff for himself. Was able to pick that up. I mean, that was actually really well played by Rising Lotus. That was a very precarious position as the fight did begin to split, but Nomad picks the healing route for himself. They are able to get the tower, and the Grace, despite being able to play the 1 versus 2 earlier, not able to when the tower is so low, had to fall back away. So ends up being a bit of an even trade, but Rising Lotus, considering how this game had been going and how it had started to look, have really bounced back against what Salty Potatoes were throwing against them.
Let's talk about power differences for a second here between these two mid laners. Cracked on this Varia, an alternating current first item, but when you look at Imagination, we'll talk about it in a second because Nomad, going very low. Imagination, Shatterglass first item, really looking for that burst damage at level 8 extended range. There's a massive power difference between these two mid laners. We'll have to see how those fights play out. Nomad trying to escape, the auto attacks come through. Imagination should have this one. Is Sneaky in the bot side, just keeping Keanu Okoa busy as the first kill comes through for Salty Potatoes. A whiffed ultimate comes out of Aeon, but Keanu Okoa is stuck in a rock. Can he escape? Looks like he should be able to. Sneaky coming in, slows, but there's a turret to try and keep him alive. Aeon charging forward, gets some damage out with that tension bow, but it's not enough to find the kill. And as this is all happening, 11 topside looks to take the turret.
Yeah, continuing to push, and the rest of his team looking for the ghost swing on the bottom side. That was one of the things that Varia ult comes out for, is to deny an instant and immediate ghost swing. They've delayed for a decent amount of time. Kestrel ult is available.
Yeah, one
See
shot.
if that can line up, or...
Ooh. Whoa!
Oh, wow, okay.
You want to steal our ghost swing? Not today, buddy. That's that's the Shatterglass early item coming out of Imagination. Going in towards a Broken Myth second, really just looking for power on this Celeste. And we've had a lot of talk about Celeste today. How strong is she in the current meta? A lot of people going back and forth. I know Nivmet is discussing what he thinks about the hero. Really interesting times for this mid laner. Such a staple in Vainglory as a mage. Gonna be Aeon, just finding out a kill by himself. Doesn't look like Solicitude was in the right position. And Salty Potatoes continuing to pressure this mid lane and the bot side as well. They're going to find a turret somewhere, but here comes the fight. Keanu Okoa going in. That's a great dive from Temptation. Class is in a lot of trouble. So is that Batiste. Will find his life falling. A double kill comes through for Nomad of all people. Imagination last man standing, but he's going to find a returner somehow. In fact, it was the minions coming in. Sneaky now trying to find some kills. What's going to happen here? Going to be the turret looking like it's going to fall. Good fight from Rising Lotus, but just wasn't enough. The turret will fall nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a good punish by Rising. And down another one goes. I was about to commend them, but then the overstay a little bit. They wanted to push more. Aeon's going to try and find another. This is one of the reasons we've seen Krill ban quite a lot, but Aeon, 2 out of 3 ults have whiffed a little bit. In the first one, there wasn't the follow-up on from the Baptiste, so hasn't exactly been working on its own, but certainly has a lot of strength.
Yeah, certainly. Cracks now with the Dragon's Eye. A lot of more power available to that barrier, especially once she gets stacking up. Solicitude called out again. Sneaky just going to put the damage down. Does miss his knock up. Solicitude running. Will fall eventually. The range coming through, and that's another turret falling for Salty Potatoes, able to take that one out in the top side.
And I wanted to call that a bit of a desperation play out of Solicitude, because I was looking at mid tower thinking, okay, maybe they got damage on it, he wants to just follow it up, but no, full health tower, and Rising Lotus kind of just walking one by one into this middle lane, like Reza's caught out now behind them as well. Aeon's going to pick him up pretty handily as well. He might get Imagination first though. Here comes the Varia ult. This is a good position for it.
Yeah, great position, lots of damage coming through, but no kills just yet for the Rising Lotus squad. Dive comes in from Keanu Okoa, Imagination laying down the damage. Keanu Okoa gonna start escaping. Krax gets stunned up, gets rooted up. Aeon smites. Aeon gonna find that kill on that crew, and you can see the damage reduction heal from Sneaky on that Grace just to make sure the dive is successful. Salty Potatoes here is just going to line up and try and take down this turret. Solicitude doing as much damage as possible. We'll be able to escape Aeon for now. I say that. Looks like he is just going to fall nonetheless. He gets smited away. This is Rising Lotus losing one man after the other, as that is going to be another falling. Good return comes out of Temptation right last second. Can he find another? Imagination will lay down the trap. Aeon doing some damage here, and Nomad just trying to provide the heals, but it's not enough. Aeon will smite away. Very messy plays coming out of Rising Lotus. The kill lead just jumped up for Salty.
Yeah, massively jumped up, and it's all the ripple effect that comes from just that over push in mid lane from Solicitude. Like, if the team aren't on the same page, if not everybody's pushing with you, you get caught out, and then what could have been a fantastic position to fight that follows it, like that variable, you want to be able to use it where your enemy can't really spread out, can't spread the damage between them. The fact the numbers disadvantage completely negates a great ultimate position. They can't really take the fight. And again, Rising Lotus not quite on the same page here. Crack's looking to try and take the Ghost Wing, but the rest of the team aren't there. And in comes Salty Potatoes. Like, again, just different pages, maybe even different chapters on this book for Rising Lotus, because they are not really working as a cohesive unit in this game.
I mean, every time you see either Temptation or Kiana Nakoa look to dive in onto that backline, that's when that anti-dive becomes so strong. You've got the core collapse just catching out Nomad here, going very low. No heals available, but will pop the boots, getting chased down. Gonna portal out. Sneaky gonna chase down, find that kill. Crack's doing his best to survive, but he gets feared away. Kiana Nakoa spinning to win. Can he survive? That is gonna be Imagination bursted down. A split fight means that Salty Potatoes do lose their main damage dealer. What's this going to mean for the rest of the fight is the real question. Is Solicitude trying to escape Sneaky and 11 as that Rona continues spinning on top in the bot side? Finally, it is going to be Aeon losing his life. Solicitude should lose his as well. Very messy split fight so far. Temptation looking for class. Can he get there is the question. Running out of energy. Let's see if Crash can keep him alive as he starts moving towards him. No, he can't. That's going to be a swift turnaround for the mid laner of Rising Lotus. And once more, the fight's very split as both teams taking kills, but nothing really coming out of it.
Yeah, you can see exactly how Salty Potatoes can end up losing these fights when their damage isn't all focused on one player. What damage? Oh, Cracks just able to survive through it. Heal at the end of it as well by Nomad Vagabond. But look, if Salty Potatoes don't focus a lot of their damage on one or two targets sequentially, that's when these fights start turning around. That's when you're playing into the likes of a Kestrel and a Varia, who can output damage on small numbers of targets and kind of take these grouped up fights in two different places. The problem is Salty Potatoes just have a decent enough lead that they can get those first picks very early on. That's when they just need to follow the same call. Aeon ended up getting split. The rest of the team didn't quite have the damage to finish it off. But this game, although it is a big advantage for Salty Potatoes, isn't quite a done deal yet. No armories have fallen. We haven't yet seen the Black Claw taken, although I have a feeling that is next. Since you have a Krull, you have a Baptiste that can shred it down very quickly.
Yeah, that Celeste is going to do so much damage as well. Ghost Wing secured by Salty Potatoes, and looks like Rising Lotus is not going to even contest for this Black Claw here. That Black Claw will be roaming over to the mid side for Salty Potatoes, and look what they do. Move straight up towards the item shop, potentially even looking to push down that top side with the wave that they have coming down the lane. A split push, just leave the Black Claw to do its thing. It's going to have to be taken down eventually, or an armory with 4, and Salty Potatoes are pushing down this top side, and it's only Temptation here to stop them. That turret gets melted, and now the armory is exposed. The Black Claw being left alone. The fight being started as Salty Potatoes get in there. Nomad gets stunned up. Keanu diving onto the backline. Lots of damage onto Aeon, but he will be able to escape. Sneaky now frontlining. That's a great stun coming through. Keanu will fall, and now it is going to be Temptation losing his life as well. Only 3 members alive for Rising Lotus. Nomad gets stunned up, and Salty Potatoes looking to pounce on it as Sneaky gets that. Solicitude, can he lay down the damage is the question. Cracks and Nomad just about to escape. Lots of damage being dealt here. That armory will fall. The recalls though, the spawns even not coming through quick enough. Maybe Solicitude can push them back as 11 going very low. Cracks just needs to land one more shot, and that is a dead Baptiste, and that is going to be Nomad going in to find the kills. Imagination loses his life as well. Solicitude will take down Aeon. The Raiders have been thwarted here, stressed, but can they take down the Dragon?
I really like the start of that engage and the start of that sequence from Salty Potatoes, where they say, okay, well, we know that mid lane is going to automatically push now here with the Black Claw, and they move towards the top lane. Black Claw does manage to just get that armory with one of the final swipes. I like the beginning of it, and then getting the tower, the armory, and the first couple of kills. Then they end up stacking on the route back out, and that's exactly what this Varia wants. Varia's, even though the alternating current comes out, we've seen the B-Max, which is more towards the use of just basic attacks during a fight. There's still a lot of damage that comes from that ultimate if you end up getting hit by 1 or 2 of those lightning strikes once a fight starts. So that's where the fight turns around. Rising Lotus, they heal back up, come back out to the fight, and even though they are at a numbers disadvantage, they're full health right in their base, and it's an easy cleanup. It's still critical damage done by Salty Potatoes. One more Ghost Wing, or certainly a Black Claw would put this game away, but they're not up yet. The global objectives are down for a little while longer.
Yeah, it's 17 and a half minutes here, Stress, one of the longest European games so far. We'll have to see how long it will take for Salty Potatoes to push back into that base and attempt a second run at the Vein Crystal. I mean, it's not all over yet for the side of Rising Lotus. It's only a 6,000 gold deficit at this 17 and a half minute mark. It's not as huge as some of the gold deficits we've seen from a dominating team, but with this Ghost Wing now respawning and Salty Potatoes moving into still take it, this is really the penultimate moment for Rising Lotus. And
Good time for the ult,
come
though.
through. It is going to be the dive coming in. Grey Barrier doing a lot of damage. Politician Shade knocks everyone back. Rona stuck in a fight by her own, and she will lose her life. Temptation taking a lot of damage, but they are turning it around. Solicitor doing the work. Can they get that barrier out? Temptation will escape, and now it is going to be Krax on the front line taking too much damage. Krax loses his life. Sneaky diving on in. Temptation low, and Rising Lotus are splitting. Temptation trying to round around the corner. Solicitor trying to backport so they have some form of defense. But now it's only 2 men left here, and Nomad will try and give his life up for Temptation. A very mobile Reza. Can he get away is the question. They've split the fight up. This is perfect for them. Aeon will chase down Nomad, but I don't think Aeon can get the kill. And that is going to be Temptation trying to escape Sneaky as well. Temptation even wants to turn it around. Sneaky knocks him up. That's going to be a heal coming through. Sneaky's now healed. Temptation will start to run. Aeon's not done yet. Sneaky finds a kill. Aeon finds a kill. 2 members losing their life, and back to the Ghost Wing we go.
Back to the Ghost Wing. Solicitude still has that ultimate available. Varia is back and alive, so this is still quite a split fight. Look at the health bars on Salty Potatoes. This isn't dying quite as quickly as they would have liked it to either, but they have been able to deny. That's a blind attempt at the steal out of Kestrel, but it wasn't quite enough. A little bit of a late Thunderbolt thrown by Krax, but okay, it was a good attempt. It was a good attempt out of Rising Lotus to try and regroup there, but they'd have to now assess their base. They have 2 waves pushing with those armories being down, and it is an exposed Vein Crystal that stands in their base. So now it is the Black Claw. This is where the earlier work has been done by Salty Potatoes. They have enough control of the map that somebody must stay in the base of Rising Lotus. That gives them the numbers advantage for a very easy Black Claw take.
Rising Lotus are actually moving forward. Here comes that Vario. Potential, still potential. Can Krax find it? Comes down, will be secured by Salty Potatoes. And now Rising Lotus have to start moving away here. This is it. Black Claw pushing mid. Salty Potatoes roaming top, looking for the fight. Invade comes through. Nomad trying to find it. 11 taking some damage. Good fearsome shade gets blocked this time, and it is going to be the carry starting to escape. Imagination on the backside trying to escape, but I'm not sure he'll be able to. Temptation takes him down, and Kiana gets out of the fight alive. Solicitude dived on by Sneaky, is able to escape with that active camo. Stuns up. 11 dead. Sneaky going low. It is going to be Aeon losing his life as well in just a second. Rising Lotus have done it. They've taken the kills. A 3 for none, and now they have to backport. Black Claw is on their Vein Crystal.
Yeah, Black Claw on the Vein Crystal. They're trying to stop the rest of the backports here. I think they should be able to do it. Black Claw doesn't actually attack the Vein Crystal that quickly. It doesn't do too much damage. It normally needs that support, so they will be able to clear this out. And that was a nice attempt out of Salty Potato to delay the fight, but Rising Lotus assessing that they must get the fight started, must get the kills, and that's exactly what happens. Nobody from Rising Lotus ended up falling on that engage, and they're able to fight back against Salty Potatoes. This is one of the most even games we've had here of the preseason Invitational. I might be mistaken, but this might be the first game that's gone over 20 minutes as well.
I certainly feel the same way, Stress. 21 on the clock right now. and both these teams still battling it out. Rising Lotus, so many signs of light, so many great dives being set up by Nomad Vagabond, and it really is just Imagination being left out to dry. Their composition, Salty Potatoes, they need to keep Imagination alive. They've got that Grace, they've got that Baptiste, they've got that Cruel. Like, how many more tools do you need to keep a Celeste alive is the real question. It could be Rising Lotus out here. Nomad is not with them. Good damage comes out. Fearsome Shade stops the fight. Class actually is AFK in the top side. That's not going to be the best thing for Salty Potatoes. A potential disconnect on that Lorelei makes things very difficult for them. Rising Lotus just giving another chance, and it is going to be Keanu not actually taking down the Lorelei. Sportsmanship will come out for now, at least from Rising Lotus, but they know that there is an AFK on the side of Salty Potatoes, and this is where things become difficult. They are going to stop, they're going to take Class down. He's holding up the minion wave. It's something that you don't want to happen. That's going to be him sent back to base. A 5v4 with Salty Potatoes now. Ghostwing spawning and Nomad escaping. Sneaky's diving in. They want to take this fight. It is going to be a number deficit. Can they do it is the question. Sneaky all by himself, starting to back away in Temptation, and Keanu diving onto the backline here. Imagination is safe, but I'm not sure I can say the same for Sneaky and Aeon. They are taking so much damage on this front line. Rising Lotus will take down Sneaky in just a second and turn straight onto Aeon. 2 kills for them. Imagination now running. Looks like he should be able to survive, but Rising Lotus not taking any prisoners of war here, going straight back to the Ghostwing, potentially to try and take that buff off the map.
Oh, and in such an important moment, the numbers disadvantage hits Salty Potatoes, but at this point, Rising Lotus say, hey, we fought hard to get back into this game. We need to keep looking at how we can play this out. And Salty Potatoes trying to look in for some kind of steal or engage on the backside, but this is still a 5 versus 4, remember. There's only 2 members of SP looking around that Ghostwing, trying to delay the push here, trying to stop Rising Lotus for as long as possible to try and get Lorelei back into this game. But Rising Lotus, from being pretty far behind, I think they're about 8,000 gold down at one point. Only 3,000 separates, but the player is going to make the difference. It's the 5 versus 4 that really is going to have an effect the longer this situation persists.
I mean, it's such a shame for Rising Lotus because their defense and their play so far has been astounding. Their ability to turtle this out has been so great against Salty Potatoes. But now, with this 4v5, that's always going to be lingering over their heads, especially for Salty Potatoes. And Rising Lotus, well, they're not going to, you know, cry. There's no point crying over spilled milk here. It's just time to take the advantage they have and see if they can't rub it in. Black Claw will spawn here. Salty Potatoes not really in a position to try and take this one away, but they can defend. And look, Class is back with an Echo and a Crystal Infusion for himself. Chances now for a proper 5v5 fight, but this time Rising Lotus is going to be the forefront of it. Black Claw and Ghostwing are theirs. They have the opportunity to push down mid.
And that's the important thing here, because a Ghostwing and a Black Claw kind of isolated aren't enough to win this game for Rising Lotus. They still need to win a fight to actually push through. This Black Claw won't win and get all the way to the Vein Crystal. It will get taken down. That outer mid tower is still standing. That's how far ahead Salty Potatoes were at the beginning of this game. So they're able to just let it go over. It wasn't do or die.
Nomad's trying to go in. This is going to be the Fearsome Shade, knocking them all around. Class at the back line, just dealing damage with that ultimate. It's so messy. And look at the damage coming down. Mario's blowing them all up. That's going to be 2 kills coming through for Class, but he gets taken out by a Solar Storm from Imagination. Nomad says, let's go back in. I'm going to try and win it all. Solicitude takes down the turrets, and 11 is left out to dry. Tries to escape, but he cannot. It is only 2 men standing for Salty Potatoes. A 3-man push with this Black Claw here, and it is going to be Temptation recalling to make sure the Vein Crystal is left alive. That Armory potentially going to lose its life. Imagination and Sneaky going to really do their best to push Rising Lotus off it, and it will be the Armory surviving. But that was a 5v5 setup. Coming out of Nomad once more, the dive is seeing so impactful for Rising Lotus.
Yeah, the dive, the team fight, just coming from cracks. That damage was insane in that fight. A lot of members of Salty Potatoes stacked upon each other, and that was really where this Varia can shine. We've talked about Varia being picked into the Celeste and having the better late game, the better damage in the team fights the longer the game goes, and that's exactly what we're seeing. That time Class was in the fight by the end of it, so at that point it wasn't necessarily the 5 versus 4, but we are in a pause now, potentially still Class having some issues. This game is right down to a knife's edge. One fight will win the game for the winning team either way.
Yeah, this is essentially coming down to that last fight, and it has to be more clean for Rising Lotus than it does for Salted Potatoes right now. Rising Lotus always have those minion waves pushing against them. Those armories down mean that they do have to deal with the top side and the mid side, and it's really difficult to deal with both when you're trying to keep Salted Potatoes at bay. We got the Ghost Wing spawning in only a couple seconds as well. Stress, something to note when we do finally come out of this pause is that a buff will be respawning, and these teams will be looking to try and get their hands on it.
One thing I want to look at though is I think when you look at what team has the benefit of playing more passive, I think you can look at Rising Lotus and say, hey, their composition actually plays better around not engaging a fight just wildly, whereas Salty Potatoes, for them to get a numbers advantage in fights, they actually have to make a pick happen. Rising Lotus can say, hey, we'll wait for them to start an objective, we'll wait for them to try and engage, and then we'll turn it back around on them, because they can just clear minions in their base until they're ready to go fight a Ghost Wing or a Blackclaw. Whereas the SP, it's going to be a harder ask. You basically need to open the map up to yourself to getting a pick or at least an objective in order to close the game out.
Yeah, when we look at the scoreboard, just to kind of give a context of where we're at, 45 seconds on the clock, so really late into this game. The scoreboard, the gold is now neck and neck, Stress. 77k to 77.3. These teams are basically at equal builds now. Late game team fights are so important, and with Nomad continuously finding the engage necessary, with Krax being able to stack up that Dragon's Eye, allowing his ultimate just to do so much damage, it's really becoming a trouble for Salty Potatoes to actually keep Imagination alive, on that back line. And these frontliners in Sneaky and Aeon are just losing their lives too quickly.
And the other thing is it's difficult for 11 to get the damage out in response because he has to stick on a target. So does Aeon. You have to stick on a target until those weakness stacks have basically come to fruition and you can chunk through people. Like in these one after another fights, that's where you'll see the Cruel look very good. That's why it's such a good thing in solo queue. Has been good as well in competitive, but in these straight up 5 versus 5 throwing everything against the wall at the same time, it's very difficult to get that working, and we're seeing it falter a little bit here in the late game.
Well, I can confirm that we haven't quite hit the longest game yet. Slimy Salamanders have the record at 26.5 minutes, but actually now I look at the clock, we're there, and a fight is breaking out. This is the longest game in 5v5, and it is continuing to go. Dive comes through from Rising Lotus, and Salty Potatoes are on the back foot, trying to run, but they're grouped up this time, and I don't think Rising Lotus have found the entry they need just yet. Krax stacked up, that's going to be the first kill going the way of Salty Potatoes as Sensation loses his life, but look at where Krax is, he's so healthy on the backside, and continue ramping up that damage. Salty Potatoes want to move on in here, but they're not so sure of themselves. It's very risky. If only they can keep Rising Lotus at bay, keep that Dragon's Eye. Dive coming through. They want this fight. That's going to be Nomad going in. Cracks, chain damage, finds the first kill. That's going over to Keanu. Looking for a second. He does get stunned up here. Sneaky healing himself, but Solicitude and Cracks are trying to do the deeps. An even fight, a 4v4 now. Rising Lotus will push Salty Potatoes back even more. Another engage comes out of Nomad. That cooldown is ridiculous, and Aeon will lose his life. Cracks takes one. Cracks takes two. Looking for three, but look, it's a teleport. Imagination is trying to backdoor. Solicitude is in position, will take him down. That is a great play coming out of Rising Lotus to keep their base alive and make sure Salty Potatoes gets none of what they want.
Rising Lotus have looked fantastic with this late game composition where they've been able to just pick and choose their engagements. I said maybe they can play more passive, wait for the engage to start around Ghostwing. They say, hey, no, we want to go aggressive. We can actually dictate the fights a whole lot better using Nomad Vagabond to go in and set the fight up for themselves, deny all of that mobility on the backside, and wouldn't you know, they're going to start the Ghostwing. They've got Rona doing what Rona does on the top side, trying to push out, create a little bit of space that could open up a Blackclaw attempt, and the death timers are so long right now. We're hitting 50 plus seconds on the death timers that this could very well be back-to-back global objectives here for Rising Lotus, and again, this could be what they need to turn the game around. I feel like this Blackclaw, now it will start doing the damage to the base that we'll see end the game for Rising Lotus.
So I must correct myself, this is the longest game in EU so far for the VPL. The record is 31 minutes and 8 seconds in North America between Tilt Rehab and Nova Esports. We're almost getting there. Stress only 2 minutes away from that point, but with a Ghost Wing and a Black Claw, Rising Lotus are essentially setting up for their end game push here. Nomad Vagabonds, his engage has been so quick, but he is top. He's out of position. Rising Lotus need to be careful here. This could be the throw for them. They've been so good so far. Sneaky taking a lot of damage. It is going to be Nomad escaping, but I'm not sure I can say the same for Cracks. Aeon is on him. Keanu Nakoa positioning. Temptation getting in there, but it now is Solicitude in trouble. Armory goes down. The Black Claw still pushing. It is going to be the first casualty. Aeon, but there's Solicitude losing his life as well. Nomad escaping Salty Potatoes, but Temptation wants Imagination. Imagination's in trouble. Here comes Keanu diving on in. Red Mist spinning, and 11 will fall. Kill goes over to Temptation, and it's going to be more as Sneaky tries to escape. Can he do it is the question. Sneaky very low, and Temptation just wants to dive in and find the kill, but a great stun from Class keeps him alive, and a Solar Storm will take Temptation out. Nomad gets revenge. The Black Claw still pushing, taking down this Vein Crystal to half, but Rising Lotus cannot continue the push, and they lose an Armory turret in the bot side. This game is going the mile.
After such a good performance, back-to-back fights going Rising Lotus way, they get caught out in the mid lane, and that's exactly what Salty Potatoes have been looking for, the fight with the numbers advantage where they can start breaking open, and Aeon just stuck on Cracks for the majority of that fight. It meant that Varia's damage just was not there for the rest of the fight, and that's what gave Salty Potatoes the way in. Good tail end of the fight, though, came out of Rising Lotus, but it was just scrappy enough that a couple of members of Salty Potatoes get back. They're able to take out the Black Claw, defend a second Black Claw on the comeback attempt by Rising Lotus. Rising Lotus have been in the lead for the gold for the last little while here in this game. The last few minutes have been under their control, but look, this has become very open, very scrappy back and forth fights to end this up. That wasn't the clean fight that Rising Lotus needed.
Yeah, we were at 55 kills as well, Stress, on that scoreboard. This has been a bloodbath of a game. Rising Lotus have turtled so well in this game, and now they're looking to try and turn this around. It's anyone's game at this point with the mid lane Armory down. That relieves some stress for the Rising Lotus squad because they only have to worry about that top side. We're hitting 31 minutes, only 8 seconds until a record is made here in the VPL, the longest game of history so far, and I'm sure many more to come. Rising Lotus versus Salty Potatoes. Ghost Wing spawning in just a second. Solicitude looking for a fight. Does run in all by himself, but here comes the rest of the squad. Vario ult is out. Rising Lotus are going to the Ghost Wing, and I don't think they're going to get contested.
Yeah, no real way of contesting too quickly here from this one. That's the Ghost Wing down. Nice attempt at the steal with the ultimate, but this is the recall coming out from Rising Lotus. They know there is no point rushing this one. They need to play this out carefully. A lot of towers still stand on the side of Salty Potatoes, so basically it's mid lane or nothing for Rising Lotus. They can't afford to go to the other lanes and push them out fully because of the way that the other lanes will just push right into their base. So basically it's win a fight in mid and end the game, or lose the fight anywhere else and probably lose the game at that point for Rising Lotus. Not too many options, but they have had such crisp team fighting for the majority of the last 20 minutes of this game.
I think it's worth noting that both Sneaky and 11 have teleport boots purchased here. There are no deep scout camps placed, so they can't really base race or try a backdoor attempt just yet. But it could be an influencer later on into this game. We'll have to find out. Imagination trying to take the Crystal Trio, but it does get taken. Nomad coming in with the invading class, and Aeon are in the front line of this Rona. Fearsome Shade will knock Temptation to a side, and that is going to be Rising Lotus falling back. They don't want to really fight in a choke point against the Celeste. Going to fall back, push down that bot side wave, and the Black Claw, she's about to come back onto the Sovereign's Rise once more.
Is this number 4 or number 5 of the game? The fact that we're even saying that. We have had games today that it didn't even spawn the Black Claw, and yet this is like 4 or 5 in this game. The last 2 have gone over to Rising Lotus at least, and 5th one... Basically, Salty Potatoes have to fight this. Now they're in a position that Black Claw is so detrimental to what was previously a lead in the game. They have to find a pick. They have to get this going. And Rona is top lane again. This could very well be another situation where the numbers advantage is working in their favor. She has to go and push that wave back, otherwise Salty Potatoes will just sit and wait for it to push to the top side. But this is their maybe chance to go if they can find somebody with crowd control.
First time that we've had a Black Claw spawn and the Ghost Wing buff has expired for this match. The 5th Ghost Black Hole could be the most influential one. Cracks just bursting down Imagination, and Nomad is going to jump in. Kiana Nakoa trying to get onto that backline, and so is Solicitor. Gets stunned up by the crew, is in a bit of trouble. Imagination all by himself. Fish and Shade keeps him alive. Imagination, can he survive is the question. That's going to be Solicitor taking down the crew, but Imagination will lose his life. A 1-for-1 trade so far, and Salty Potatoes are on the wrong side of the map. Nomad's going to jump in, cut off their escape. Solicitor's just trying to do the damage as Cracks dives on in. He is just cutting them off. Can they stay alive is the question. Salty Potatoes as Cracks trying to do the damage, trying to chain the lightning. It's sneaky on Kiana Nakoa, but Solicitor finds the first kill, finds the second kill. Imagination, last man standing for Salty Potatoes, will lose his life in an ace for this game. 34 minutes, and what can Rising Lotus do with it?
Rising Lotus have turned what looked like a sure loss right the way around. The turtle all the way back nearly 20 minutes ago on their Vein Crystal. They're even going to ignore Blacklaw. They don't even want the minion wave to push because they're just going to run through. 50 seconds still on Sneaky and 11 Imagination. At this point, this is a one game. They have turned this game around and they're going to try and secure 3rd place for themselves.
Incredible stuff from Rising Lotus here, taking this game from the depths of hell. The Phoenix has risen, and Rising Lotus will find a win over Salty Potatoes, shoring up that tie for 3rd place. Rising Lotus and Salty Potatoes sitting on that position. A well-fought battle at 34 and 53. That is an incredible game coming out of the squad of Rising Lotus. Wow.